All right, folks, today on the Counter Media Podcast, we're going to be talking about Kash Patel. Is he abolishing the ATF? And does Ukraine actually owe the U.S. any money? Zelensky doesn't seem to think so. We're going to be covering all that and more right here on the Counter Media Podcast tonight. All right, folks. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Hope everybody's doing well out there. We got a lot to cover tonight. We actually got Jason in the house.
Hey.
Jason, it's good to have you back on the show for a change. And, of course, our best buddy out there in Australia, Chris. What's happening, man?
Hello. Happy Tuesday to all the Australians, if there are any Australians watching. Not sure if there are, but there should be.
What time is it over there?
It's 15 hours ahead.
Or is it?
Yeah, it's 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Tuesday.
11 a.m. Tuesday. He's living in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the ATF is gone.
Hey, is the ATF abolished yet?
Yeah. Just happened an hour ago. You'll get that in, 14 hours or something?
Yeah. All right, folks, I want to say hi to everybody over in the comments already. Jeff Johnson, Con, A.M. Atkinson, MPCV. Who else we got over there? Mostly Peaceful Combat Vet. Oh, that's the same guy, just on a different channel. I know who that is. Metal Seer, good to see you, buddy. Jason TG Sponsler and JB.
That's me.
Oh, that's you. Don't do this. Lori Matthews, good to see you. Ted Boyette, good to see you. Black Dog 7 Black Dog. Oh, Jason, something you don't know is now Rumble comments show up on our feed.
Yeah, that's new.
That is completely
Man,
awesome.
you've been fancy here the last couple months, I guess.
I know, man. It's a lot better without you.
It's like you know what a computer is now. All right, fantastic.
It's all the Chris effect. I just raised the bar of this whole production.
I wouldn't give Gary any credit. Someone showed him that, that's for sure.
Jeff Holman, good to see you. Steve Schaefer, and everybody else that's tuning in tonight. Make sure you say hello. And again, for those of you that are watching this in the future, because I think this is going to be a great episode. We got a lot to talk about. Make sure you guys are joining us every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m., where you can jump in on the conversation. That's what this podcast is all about. And of course, we have the Dangerous Liberty podcast every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Join us for that as well. We got a lot of great guests and different shows coming up. But anyways, folks, we got a lot to cover tonight. So for those of you that aren't aware, Kash Patel has actually been, not only is he the director of the FBI and confirmed as such, he's also been made the acting director of the ATF. And there's a lot to unpack with that, I think.
Dun, dun, dun.
I really do think this is possibly a move to abolish the ATF in a way, right? Because ultimately, there are certain laws in the books that are going to be enforced no matter if the ATF as an agency is there or not. I do think that this very possibly means that they're going to be basically pulling in the ATF into the FBI. I don't see why they wouldn't have done that already. I mean, the ATF is kind of a redundant agency to begin with. Never mind that all the different unconstitutional laws that it enforces to begin with. I also think that there's a good chance that we could be looking at the repeal, or at least parts of the repeal of parts of both the GCA and the NFA. And I think that could be coming down. The other thing that I wasn't aware of this, Jason actually informed me on this, but the ATF received an executive order
it's an executive order from old Donnie himself.
Old Donnie himself. Let me throw this up on the page here. I want you guys to check this out.
And this is not the executive order, but it's just kind of a summary of it.
Yeah. So basically, the executive order went down to the ATF, and the review. Basically, this is a review that is coming from Pam Bondi as well. The presidential and agency actions that have restricted firearms rights. This is one of the things we're reviewing. Rulemakings by the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of ATF, that implicate the Second Amendment reports.
Specifically under the Biden administration.
Yes. All of these are basically looking at what the Biden administration has done in the many different ways that it was basically undermining the Second Amendment to begin with. They want to review the reports and policy from the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. the government's legal positions in litigation implicated in the Second Amendment, agency firearm ammunition classification policies, the processing of applications to make, manufacture, transfer, or export firearms. So the other parts of this,
these are the big takeaways of what this possibly could affect.
and that is the ATF's pistol brace rule that classified pistols equipped with stabilizing braces as short-barreled rifles. Now, the interesting part about that is that actually that original executive order came from the Trump administration. Of course, that has all been but overturned by the Eighth Circuit. So, and that's still in litigation. I think that's still up for appeal, and ultimately it's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
The ATF's frame or receiver rule that interpreted newly, this was a novel interpretation, the federal firearm statutes to restrict partially completed frames or receivers, such as parts kit under the NFA GCA, also known as 80%. The ATF.
So what that would most likely affect are all the essentially your poly 80s, your lone wolves, and stuff like that. Whether they're sold as firearms or are they anything?
And under the Biden administration, they were attempting to make those essentially.
They didn't attempt. They did.
They made it where they were sold as firearms.
Yes, those are firearms.
Okay, and that is still currently the policy.
Yes.
The ATF's zero tolerance policy, which is a huge impact not only on all FFLs, but that's something that we constantly worry about. But basically what they were doing was they were going into, and when they were doing investigations or the, what's it called, Jason, the annual or regular inspections of FFLs.
Oh, yeah. The annual, yeah, it's I forget how annual. Often it is, but yeah, it's not annual. It's once every so many years.
Whenever they get to you.
Yeah, and that actually came out in, I want to say FOPA, the Firearm Owner Protection Act, where instead of like just coming in surprisingly, like they can only do it every so often.
It has to be announced.
Yeah,
that's a no.
Yeah,
but basically, what's going on with that is that we basically have FFLs having their license revoked over simple paperwork errors and other non-willful violations of the GCA. So, I mean, I'm talking little things, and there's a lot of cases out there where, I mean, again, very minor incorrect information by the person that is getting the background check. You know, one of the big things, for instance, on the FFL paperwork, you can actually see where it says county. Most people look at that and think it says country, and I've done this myself, and I had to redo it. But it's the wording there. It's asking for your county, but a lot of people think it says country, so they put USA, and then you got to go and so something as simple as that. If that is incorrect, you could potentially get your FFL revoked. The ATF's engaged in business rule, which is a big one. Which there was a gentleman, I covered this story, a guy in Arkansas who was basically prosecuted and ultimately, or attempted to be prosecuted. They raided his home, and they did so under this new rule, and they ended up killing this guy in Arkansas. So basically, people that were normally considered, firearms enthusiasts, collectors, things like that, suddenly the ATF deemed that they were now engaged in the business, and basically they raided his home with the idea that, hey, you know what, you're doing all of these things that we think you should have a license to do. So now we're going to raid your home and ultimately kill this guy, because all of a sudden, they raided his home in the middle of the night. He came down the stairs with a gun. They shot him in the face. The other thing they're talking about is NFA form processing to limit unnecessary delays for applicants. We know what the boondoggle has been with that. For many years, it took over, 18 months. Up to 18 months to get a suppressor.
That's all changed now, though.
It has changed. It's much faster.
That was pre this thing. It's
100%.
They actually did pretty good on that.
And that just tells us that was complete bullshit in the beginning, in my opinion. So, you can take that for what it's worth. But I do think that overall, what we're looking at is an attempt in a grand scheme. I think this has kind of been in the works for a while.
I told you what my conspiracy theory was. I think it's a pretty good one.
Go ahead and articulate it, Jay.
So Kash Patel was put in to, this is just a theory I have working out here, guys. I said, all right, well, Kash Patel's the director of the FBI, right? Then they stated, hey, Dan Bongino is going to be assistant director of the FBI. And I was like, oh, interesting, because I thought he might have been Secret Service or something like that. But I definitely figured to myself, I was like, oh, there's no way if they put him as the ATF director. I was kind of like, I don't think he'll get confirmed. What do you guys think? Like, I didn't think he would have gotten confirmed because of his platform, on 2A and everything like that. What's your guys' opinion?
Yeah, I think Dan. You talking about Dan Bongino?
Yeah, I don't think he would have gotten confirmed.
Well, first of all, I think there's been a reason that
Right.
they haven't named an ATF director.
Yeah.
I think this has been the plan all along.
I think this is the plan, right? So they made him assistant director to the FBI. Then today they made Kash Patel the acting director of the ATF. Dun dun dun.
Oh my Jesus!
I smell smoke and fire, right? But so I think their plan is going to be essentially abolish the ATF but in reality suck them up into the FBI.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right.
I think that's where it's going. If they couldn't get Dan Bongino to get confirmed, well, you don't have to get him confirmed if the agency doesn't exist.
See, I think they wanted Dan Bongino as the deputy director of the FBI. I don't think they ever cared about whether or not he was. I think this has been in the works. I think that is almost a separate issue, in my opinion, and this is just our opinions. We don't have any insider information or anything like that, folks. But I do think that the right has been talking about abolishing the ATF, and we've seen the ATF be weaponized dramatically to abuse people's Second Amendment rights and to abuse those that are in the business of selling guns legally here in the United States under the auspices of safety, preventing, gun violence, all these other things they use. They always have a good reason to violate rights. But, we've seen that abuse under the Biden administration. I think due to that, not only has the FBI lost all trust, but the ATF, I don't know, ever had trust. And it's definitely, it's whatever inkling of trust that we had in the ATF to act fairly. And I think that's gone. And we saw, them just coming out with new novel interpretations of laws and regulations, everything from the butt stock to, the bump stock ban to everything else that they've done under this. And just, again, that they have been violating Second Amendment rights since the administration, the Biden administration came into office, and, very aggressively so, with no shame in it whatsoever. So I'm glad to see that this is happening. I think this is another fulfillment, even though I don't think Trump ever said anything like that on the campaign trail. But the fact is that we need to get rid of the ATF. And if somebody like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are running the FBI, I have no problems with the ATF kind of being sucked up into the FBI. And really, they shouldn't be. They're redundant agencies to begin with. There's people that I know that work for the ATF, and almost any ATF case you're going to have FBI there as well. So, I just think that's the way that this whole thing goes down. You guys let us know if you disagree or agree, or what you think is going on with that.
If it does get sucked into the FBI, I imagine they'd probably put it like, they'd marginalize it so much it's, basically almost
as
got rid of anyway, perhaps.
Like any agency that works, right? They got multiple things that they do, right? So you really can't get rid of them because you still have the law, right?
You can't get rid of the function of what they do.
You still have the law. It still need to abide by the law. So whatever the laws are, and we're not talking about rules. We're talking about laws written in Congress, right? Although rules are interpreted from the laws either way, right?
They have the force of law.
Yes, they do have the force of law. So either way, you can't get rid of that stuff. So they can get rid of rules, but in order for laws to go away, Congress has to enact, right? So, but I do think this is like the step towards maybe possibly repeal of the NFA. Maybe not completely dismantling, but, removing certain types of categories from NFA firearms.
Yeah, look, SBRs, in my opinion, first of all, I don't believe that banning machine guns is constitutional. And there's a lot of people out there, and even those in the Second Amendment community, that disagree with me. I'm a 2A absolutist all the way. But without a doubt, there's not a person out there that has a cogent argument against taking suppressors and or short-barreled rifles and shotguns out of the NFA. There's no good logical reason to keep those two things in the NFA other than collecting revenue from us by charging us $200 on the tax stamp on both of those types of products. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's extortion, and it's worse than a poll tax. We are having to pay a fee to exercise a right that is guaranteed to us under the U.S. Constitution. That's just a fact. So I think machine guns should not be in the NFA as well. If you are a law-abiding citizen, you should be able to get a machine gun just the same way that any sort of law enforcement here in the United States can get a machine gun. And the whole point of the Second Amendment was, military grade weapons. That was the intent of it, because what the Second Amendment was trying to allow the average citizen to do was A, be able to defend the country if we had an invading force into this country. So therefore we needed military grade weapons to do that. And B, be able to stave off a government that is tyrannical. You also need military grade weapons to be able to do that as well. And just like I've always said, if you have rules that are applied to the people that are not applied to the average law enforcement agency, or if those are different, then we are not a government of, for, and by the people. We are setting up a government to be able to, overthrow the people or to be able to abuse the people. And that's not how this country was founded. That's not the principles in which this country was made. So
Longshot has a good question. What happens to our FFLs if they get abolished? Well, that's kind of like the good questions, right? Like what happens? Like how is the industry regulated? How is, we obviously know how like criminal enforcement would still go, but how is the industry regulated, right? Who's overseen? Does every asset of the ATF get sucked in if, say, this theory panned out? I'm not entirely sure, but those would be the hard parts. Now, that being said, if history says anything, you never get gun rights back, right? There's always more taken away from you. So the industry, I believe, would still be regulated. It would just be a different agency that regulates it. And the only thing that has to change here, and I'm 99% sure on this, is that essentially the Attorney General gives an agency the pertinent authority that is for this specific task, and they are the enforcement. So really, they just need to take away the pertinent authority of the ATF and give that to the FBI if they were to suck in the ATF into the FBI, and then the FBI would be part of regulation.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to happen to FFLs. I think you're still going to need a federal firearms license to sell firearms.
For sure.
Now, what they should change is actually make it a federal firearms license, so I can sell to those across state lines. If you have a federal firearms license, I shouldn't just be able to sell handguns or Class 3 items to people within my own state. I should be able to sell to those that come across state lines and buy them, because that's what a federal firearms license is. If not, just call it a state firearms license, because that's what you're essentially making it into. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting.
YouTube rejected the comment. Oh, it's okay. They got it in Facebook.
Yeah, but Jeff didn't see it. I said F you, Jeff, to his text in response to his text message that he sent me. We'll see what is going on with that.
It is interesting times we are living in right now.
It is. We have a political revolution going on. I don't want us to lose steam on it. Fueled by blockchain says, what the heck are you doing?
Regulation. I was trying to just take over like that. Sorry,
touch it again. I'm gonna take your rights from you. Buying credit cards. Congrats, you made the list.
I can't. I can't help myself.
Go ahead.
It's like a challenge. Tell me not to do something. All right. Sorry. Continue.
Heavy on transactional data, buying credit cards. and Congress, he made the list.
Where did he hit that? I was trying to go back to his. I don't even know where he was. Full auto musket would be a pain in the ass. That's right.
Full auto musket.
We own all the guns and make up all the rules. What can go wrong there? I don't know what your point is, Russell. Clarify that for me so I can give you a good response. I like Jason being back. He had some intelligent context. I mean, after Chris for 2 months, we need.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
I like Jeff. I haven't seen anything too profound from him in the comments. All right, so I'll just leave it like that.
I try to get here. I really do try to get here as often as I can. I do enjoying this stuff, but I got a little one at home now, and it turns out they put a damper in your free time.
They really do.
Yeah, that wasn't on the that wasn't in the fine print when I read about it.
Yeah, a German person that was just arrested recently for saying bad things about the government. It wasn't even that bad. No,
It wasn't even that bad. I don't know. Prove it.
I mean, there's people in even the UK and things like that are being arrested for even saying anything about being outspoken against immigration at all. I mean, just trying to make a logical argument against it.
JJ, you're not wrong. Also,
yeah. But really, this is more of an indicator of Jeff Johnson's level of intelligence than so much Jason's. But
well, I was going to bring up this. I guess this was a response.
Oh, sorry.
That was a response to me saying I haven't seen any profound comments from Jeff. And I think Jason's got a good little response there. All right.
Yeah, German government arresting people over memes. I think one guy simply said the leader was an idiot or something, and police showed up to arrest him. Yeah, I mean, we have pure and utter tyranny going on in Europe right now. And, this is one of the things that J.D. Vance just spoke out. Was it the EU or the UN? I forget. One of the two. I think it was EU, right? Where he had that speech.
I think it was something, yes, something in Europe. I don't think it was actually the EU, but.
Like a G8 summit or G7 summit type of thing.
Yeah, I had the link saved on the previous episode, but we didn't get to it.
Freaking European boondoggles. They were not happy with his critiques of their anti-freedom of speech movements.
Yeah, and he said a lot of good things about the Romania. You guys just cancelled the Romanian election, and that's kind of ridiculous, talking about Russian interference, and if your democracy can't withstand certain opinions from the outside, what kind of democracy is it? Something along those lines. It was really good. And so I was giving it to him, and then I think at one point he got like a little golf clap from like one person in the audience. Yeah, because everyone else there was just copping it,
Yeah.
And they probably weren't too happy.
Everybody, because there was somebody else talking about that, and they weren't expecting that speech at all. And and you could see them; they were just kind of gobsmacked and sitting there slack jaw, listening to him criticize how they're basically acting like Hitler, because they are. And to answer your question, Carl, I wouldn't hold my breath. Two things. Number one, we don't know if they're going to end the NFA and or take parts of that off, or take suppressors off the NFA. I wouldn't hold your breath for that either. But
yeah, these are all speculations just from the movement of personnel lately.
Yeah, I think what Jason and I are saying here are pretty good conclusions based on what we're seeing as far as evidence. And again, they're just all of it's pure speculation. But I do think we have some good indicators, and the best indicators that we've ever seen, that we're moving back toward a government that is there to protect the Second Amendment, and that's what we're looking at.
I've got the video of JD Vance there. I think I've got a little section there where he says something about sort of a social media crackdown, and someone got arrested for praying outside an abortion clinic or something.
Yeah, play that.
Might as well play a little bit of that
Absolutely.
Before we move on from the topic.
And to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted, Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief.
Oh, good God.
So he goes on for a while, and they're not too happy. That's like Klitschko from used to be the mayor of Kiev in Ukraine. Anyway, yeah, it was a pretty good speech.
Yeah.
I don't know if you also want to see that. I got the bit about the Romanian election too. If we want to see that before we go.
Yeah, let's go ahead and throw that up there.
The United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. And I say ourselves because I fundamentally believe that we are on the same team. We must do more than talk about democratic values, we must live them. Now, within living memory of many of you in this room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent.
Then he goes on. I think I missed a bit. He sort of finishes. He must bring up Romania somewhere else, and then he gets a little bit of a clap from one person.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I don't think they liked it very much.
I wanted
I
to
see that being like, what?
Yeah, they're not happy about that. They love the censor, and because they know they're losing their grasp and power over there. That is very clear to me, and I think they're doing everything they can. They're desperate to continue to hold on to whatever power they had. They got extremely power hungry during COVID. They liked that amount of control that they had. So, they're trying to perpetuate it. And hopefully people are waking up over there and seeing what's going on. I think they are. I think Germany just elected a more conservative leader. I think that I have to look more into that. But that'd be
Scholz did pretty well badly. He was on the left-wing party.
Yeah.
They got their worst numbers in a while. The Conservative Party won, but then the more far-right party, AFD, didn't. I mean, they did better than usual, but not that well. Yeah, Elon Musk was supporting the more AFD, whatever, the more so-called far-right party.
Yeah.
They did okay, but not as good as some were predicting.
I
think all the other parties agreed to some coalition where they sort of pushed them out because they're just too extreme.
Well, this is one of the stories that just enraged me today. And this is talking about, basically Trump's talking about how all this money that we've sent to Ukraine, basically that this is debt, and, Zelensky and Ukraine owe us some money. And Zelensky says basically it came as a grant rather than debt, and he doesn't plan on paying us back any money. He says, I'm not signing something that 10 generations of Ukrainians are going to pay for later, but yet they do expect the United States and 10 generations of U.S., the population here in the U.S. to actually pay, the U.S. citizens to pay.
Right.
But he doesn't want to pay for his own country. And
supposedly it's an existential crisis. How much is your country worth? Is it?
Yeah, exactly. An economic
crisis. Do you want to stick around or?
100%. So I think
I've got this video of him saying this section too.
Send that.
All right, present, share screen. Yeah, somewhere around here. Oh, whoops.
I want to say you guys are getting pretty good at this computer stuff.
Yeah, learning what a few of the buttons do.
I do know it was 100s. This is for a fuck. I'm not going to recognize 500.
Yes, I think he's saying we got 100 from America, not. Oh, because I think initially maybe Trump's sort of mineral deal might have been like eventually you'll pay us back 500 billion, which is Pretty baller move from Trump. You know?
Well, it sounds like to me what he's talking about is the actual cash that we've sent Ukrainians, and not talking about the money that we've sent them via munitions and other supplies. And I think that's the distinguishment here, which is bullshit to begin with. Like, yeah, you still owe us money for all the missiles, bullets, and other supplies that we've sent you, not just the actual cash that we sent you as well.
I'd have to look into that more, because I thought most of the US aid was in weapons and it was Europe that was giving the money. But I'd have to double check that. And I thought it was like 100 million worth of equipment. I could be wrong on that, but that was my basic understanding.
Let me.
But here he's talking about in the rare earth mineral deal, he's trying to work out, talking about how much they'll get back, how much we've had. Because it's a bit messy, all the different details. There's been a back and forth. I think the number has come down a bit. But then in the new version, which I think America's trying to get less money from Ukraine, but now there's less of a security guarantee. In fact, there's like none at all. And I think America's trying to say, well, this is an economic guarantee, because if it's in our interest to get money from you guys, then we'll be more likely to back you up. So that's sort of the best guarantee that we can give you. But I think here's where he sort of says, the 100 million was a grant. And, we don't know that. He's like, I'll just let him speak, unless you got something ready to go.
No, go. Send it.
Whoever says a bit, with all due respect,
So about
with
Trump
all respect
inflated
to
numbers.
partners, I'm very solid on that, because this is the real situation and we are completely right. Actually, I wouldn't be ready to agree to 100 billion. Why? Because we should not recognize grants as debts, like it or not. But I had agreed it with Biden, with the US Congress, and I'm thankful to the Congress. In presence of two parties, there was support via grants, and grants make no debt, so we should not be returning this debt. Maybe some would say this is not just, but that had been the earlier agreement. It had been about grant
I screwed one over on Biden, fair and square. I'm keeping that
not
one.
recognizing as a debt. The condition to do is that the United States, as our strategic partner, says, yes, we will give you assistance, but you will have to repay it with certain markup for the US. It's not about grant, it's about a new agreement. This is what I said. I'm ready for a dialogue like that. I'm sure it will result positive. Again, regardless of whether we like it or not, because we need your assistance.
I mean, he's not really wrong, right? He's like, if I got this grant,
question is,
and we got to make a new agreement now on something, right? He's not really wrong.
Well, the problem is that he has no negotiation power.
Well, yeah, obviously.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'd like to see, do we have anything? First of all, I had never heard that discussed in the public sphere about whether or not Ukraine. I've never seen this meeting where, number one, Biden is basically saying, hey, this is just a grant, this money, you don't have to pay this money back.
Biden said anything.
No, I'm sure. So
sure it was some aid.
Is there a written agreement on this? Or B, is there not? Well, one thing I do want to, while we were playing that, I was looking up whether or not we sent them cash. So here is a AP fact check, and this AP fact check was March 7th, 2023. And now that I'm looking at newer information, cash isn't really talked about, but this basically the AP says claim the U.S. is not providing cash to Ukraine. It only supports the country through donated military equipment. AP's assessment, false. While the U.S. is indeed providing weapons and equipment to Ukraine, it has also provided billions in financial assistance to the country following Russia's invasion. The facts, former Congressman Adam Kinzinger, a Republican he is a Republican from Illinois, made the inaccurate suggestions. I forget that he's actually a Republican. Recently while taking aim at Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been critical of the U.S. aid to Ukraine. People like MTG, in reference to Ukraine, the aid is not pallets of cash. It's in the form of military equipment assigned a value and is donated, Kinzinger wrote in a tweet. That equipment is usually older and would be replaced in the next few years. Basically, that is incorrect. We are providing actual cash. The problem is that I don't think those numbers are listed anymore.
I can tell you what's not replaced every couple of years is military equipment.
Yeah, 100%.
I've driven some old,
and it doesn't matter. Even if we were just sending them our old military equipment, that doesn't mean doesn't have a monetary value both to us and or Ukraine, and that they shouldn't pay these things back. So regardless, what this ingrate should be doing is saying, hey, you know what? I felt like the right thing to do is say, you know what? Hey, I felt like the discussions that I had under the Biden administration, they were giving me this funding. With that being said, we're really grateful to the United States, and let's work out a deal to make sure that the U.S. is repaid for what they've invested into Ukraine. That would be the right thing to say, but that's not what this asshat is saying. He's saying something completely different. He's acting like a spoiled child, like we owe them something, and we don't. And I'm so sick of this. This is how Europe and so many of the rest of the world thinks that the U.S. is supposed to operate. We just give money left and right, and we're not expected to expect anything back, and that's not how this works.
Yeah, it's like he really doesn't understand his place, and I think Europe's sort of gassing him up a little bit, where he thinks he can sort of dictate things. So Trump's tried to do a deal with, some sort of talks with Russia. The first one in Saudi Arabia, and I guess there'll be a few more without Ukraine, which sort of makes sense. Russia's sort of got all the leverage here, and it's good to sort of see what's going on there and what's going on with Zelensky. But Zelensky and Europe and sort of a big chunk of the media in America and here in Australia, they've sort of said that that's not, the way it's supposed to go. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. I forget where I was going there.
Gary, he's right about everything. He gets a big head over here. You gotta let him down sometimes.
But they all know. I've been training the audience, Jason. They know that if they add Gary is right, we're going to make sure that that's better than a super chat.
I feel like there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome going on in this chat right now.
Probably.
That's a good comment from Russell. Russia will not give up Crimea for the simple reason that it's the only warm water port essential for Russia to survive. And all the people of Crimea generally want to stay part of Russia. They've been part of Russia for 14 years. Yeah, well, the point I was trying to make before I had a bit of a brain fluff or whatever, but so Trump, was talking about making it, Europe was complaining about a deal being made without Ukraine and a deal being made behind Ukraine's back. It was sort of like a talking point. And at one point, I think it was in that Zelensky presser that we just showed, Zelensky said, they can't do it behind our back. We deserve a seat at the table. In fact, sort of we are the table. And then we invite Europe to the table, and then we invite America to the table, and then we can invite Russia to the table. And that's how it should work, because we're Ukraine. And it's like... And all the Europeans gas him up with stuff like that. They had some sort of European conference there. A whole bunch of European ministers went to Ukraine, and they sort of kept repeating that same sort of line about not only should Ukraine be at the table, it should be at the center of the table. So, that's where they're going, which is obviously in contrast to what Trump's doing. They're undermining Trump's efforts and stuff.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, Ukraine is the least important element in this whole discussion, because they're not the deciders of their fate, because they don't have the power to decide their fate. The two people that are going to decide their fate, the two entities, is Russia and the United States. Let's be real. Without those are the two that are going to make the decisions here. Number one, we're providing all the military weapons. We're providing a majority of the financial incentives and the ability to continue to fight this war, regardless of what the European Union is doing. And I don't even know where the money is that they're supposedly given. Supposedly they've given $200 billion. Where did that go? What did that go to? I'm sure there's zero accountability, and I'm just sure it's mostly just another circular thing where they're laundering it through Ukraine. Most of it's going back to different politicians and different political organizations all throughout Europe.
Oh, yeah.
It's just pure corruption. So first of all, Zelensky, you are the least important figure in all of this. You have no money. You're broke. And you sound like a petulant child that's demanding daddy's credit card. You don't get it. And you need to end the war because your people are getting killed. And guess what? You're going to have to make some major concessions because you don't have the authority or the power to make any decisions here. You really don't. And that's what he needs to wake up and realize.
Yeah, and apparently, I haven't double checked this, but it was said by this Arestovich, which was Zelensky's former advisor. So he, should know a thing or two. And he basically said the Ukrainian parliament failed to pass a vote recognizing Zelensky as president until the inauguration of a new head of state. So I have to double check that, but it almost seems like the Ukrainian parliament tried to pass, the Rada or whatever they call it, tried to pass some sort of symbolic measure like we stand with Zelensky, in lieu of an election, which would be a better sort of vote of confidence. But I don't think it seems, according to this Arestovich, and a few other places I've seen it, he didn't even pass that. Even some Ukrainian politicians aren't even that united with him. So, and this Arestovich, I think he's calling for an election. I think he might want to run himself for president of Ukraine.
And the other part of this too, I do think that the Trump administration is playing some chess here with this, because I do think that one of the main reasons they went after USAID is tied in directly with what's going on in Ukraine and money being funneled over there. So I think he's basically, whittling away at the base of Zelensky's ability to do anything over there. And I think there's a direct link between the war in Ukraine and the fact that Doge went after USAID right away. Not only that, yeah. I also think that USAID was what funded and enabled a lot of the resistance that we saw under the first Trump administration as well.
USAID, while they have a lot of good programs, they do need to get reined in, because they are a special type over there.
Well, they're social engineering, leftist, communist, social engineering entity that is undermining the U.S. abroad.
It is hardcore that way there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Obviously, no one. We've worked with them so much, Yeah,
we can speak in past tense because they no longer are.
Yeah, yeah, right. Border Patrol owns their building now. They closed it down and put Border Patrol in there.
I do realize that there is an oversight for Ukraine. What I'm talking about is for the European Union. There may be an oversight website or something that talks about the money coming from European Union, but that's what I was talking about specifically.
Also, there's some things going on at the UN related to, because they tried to pass some kind of resolution. I guess it's the 3-year anniversary of the Russian invasion, and they tried to pass some resolution, condemning Russia.
They're trying to. I think they're trying to get Ukraine as not into the UN, right? Because you don't want to expand that, but. As like a special, what do they call it? I was just reading about this the other day, like not a special envoy, but a special circumstance, essentially, right? They're not part of the UN, but they're kind of like at the table, like, hey guys, am I cool?
Possibly. Yeah. I was going to bring up something else, because they are a member, but not a member of the Security Council. So maybe they're trying to get a seat on that. I'm not exactly sure.
There was something that I know Sweden once was. It was like a special thing to the UN. They were there for a little bit before they were part of the UN, and same thing here. They're trying to like, okay, well, we don't want to put you in the UN, but we'll kind of let you in the room, and you can just hang out in the corner.
Yeah. Possibly. The thing I was going to bring up was this vote they were trying to pass, just condemning Russia. I think they have a vote in the Security Council and then another vote on the same thing in the General Assembly or whatever. And the Ukraine one, thanks to the US, was sort of stopped. It was sort of condemning Russia quite heavily. But I think America lobbied for it to be more neutral. And so... And the neutral one passed. I can't remember all the details with the Security Council and the General Assembly, but basically there was a very anti-Russian thing that was pushed forth. America voted against that. In fact, I think here's the vote here, voting against this resolution that sort of condemns Russia. Basically, most of the world condemned to, I guess most of the world abstained, really, which I think says a lot.
Abstinence.
Yeah.
But only a few countries were against it.
It's a lot of abstinence.
It's the majority. A lot of yellows. But as you'd expect, Russia would vote against it. But boom, there's United States. And let me just say, we had a few Israel debates. Israel also voted in sort of with Russia and America. So good on you, Israel. All right. I'll give you a rare compliment. I think this is the American representative talking about the other resolution being too one-sided, perhaps.
Mr. President, that is why the United States opposed putting forward another resolution, and that is why we cannot support Ukraine's resolution, and we urge its withdrawal in favor of a strong statement committing us to end the war and work towards a lasting peace. The United States also requests the General Assembly take action on the United States' proposed resolution immediately following consideration of the Ukraine drafted resolution.
Yeah, so I guess they did reject the first one and pass the second one that was more moderate. So some people are quite upset about that because, now America's sided with Russia against the whole world, and they're all quite upset about it. But, you want to make peace, you got to be a little bit more diplomatic than just sort of wagging your finger at Russia the whole time. I mean, that's not going to be... How's that worked out so far? So, yeah, that was...
Well, and JJ says if Russia wanted to, they could walk in there, squash Ukraine, and be done with this in a day or two. Could they not? But why has this war been going on for 3 or 4 years?
I don't think so. I don't think
so.
Yeah,
I don't. There have been some studies on Russia's actual capabilities, and I think when it comes to their
capabilities have been a fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
propaganda going on.
Well, just a lot of their equipment and overall wartime readiness is not what they claim.
Absolutely. Well, any country that has non-volunteer army is already a problem.
Yeah.
Right. Like going to all these countries we've been to with like non-volunteer armies, most of them use half of their military or more than half of their military for manual labor. So who knows what is actually happening in Russia via military wise. They'll have their special units that are very good at what they do. However, as far as the vast military, I think that because it wasn't crushed from the very beginning, I think there's been a lot of propaganda happening over the years on how good Russia's military is.
Yeah, and I remember having that conversation just prior to Ukraine kicking off too, and I was like, I said the same thing. I was like, look, if Russia wants to, they can go in there and they can just wipe them all out.
Yeah.
And I do think that without the military, the U.S. assistance that we've given them, I think that pretty much would have been the case. But now suddenly they have tow missiles, they have all these other capabilities. We're funding them in many different ways, everything from drones to munitions to material, as well as
kind of the same thing happened in Afghanistan, right?
With what we did with
us
the
funding.
Mujahideen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just on us funding the Muj, right? Really put all of a sudden they had no more air assets, right? And it crippled them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a lot of propaganda going on in how good Russia's military actually is, because if they could crush them, they would have.
Well, I'm not sure. I think, there definitely is some propaganda. And I think Ukraine has sort of showed that Russia isn't quite as capable as, some propaganda would have sort of made out. But I think on the other hand, we sort of assume a lot of things about what Russia wanted, because they did go for Kiev straight away, and sort of the narrative is they tried to take all of Ukraine, but they've been fought back. Mm-hmm. It could be more tactical. They might be, from the start, they might have only wanted those regions. Maybe they were trying to sort of get straight to capture Kiev to get a surrender or something straight away, realised that wasn't really working out too well. Then they had those sort of talks in Turkey about some kind of a deal. Russia says, for what it's worth, they could be lying obviously, that they pulled their troops back from Kiev as part of the deal, as part of goodwill or something. And that sounds a bit dodgy, but who knows? I'm not sure they really wanted all of Ukraine, and they are fighting sort of the combined weight of NATO countries and stuff.
A freaking mutiny during this whole thing.
You're talking about with the
with the
contracting.
With the contract. What's the?
I forgot what they're called. But
yeah, they had a whole mutiny. That dude didn't last long.
I don't know what really happened.
Oh, Wagner, yeah.
Yeah, Wagner. Yeah,
the mercenaries.
Wagner Group. I feel like there was some sort of like weird political theater going on with some of that. I'm not sure what it all. I think what we saw is not what actually happened to some extent.
I think they saw a possibility to actually take Putin out, right, and replace him. That's what I think. I think they saw a window.
Maybe. No, that's they grossly overestimated their capabilities.
Yeah, they made a mistake.
As drones under 2A is saying off topic, if prayer is your thing, say one for for us in Buffalo, Missouri, school flip. They're sending EMTs from neighboring areas. Yeah, absolutely. Prayers go out to you guys. Hopefully that people will not be injured, or kids will not be injured, or anybody will not be injured with that. But that's unfortunate to say the least.
I've got a little bit.
Go ahead.
A little bit from the Trump Macron presser they did. He gets one question in there about that UN vote. Why'd you vote that way? Trump didn't really answer. Where are we? Share. Stage.
The lasting peace. We want to do the first development, and that would be in place? Possible, yes.
Can you explain the rationale, sir, in the U.S.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Can you explain the rationale in having the U.S. vote against the UN resolutions that Ukraine proposed and also the U.S. proposed?
I would rather not explain it now, but it's sort of self-evident, I think.
Mr. President. It's not the best answer, but it's not too bad. I mean, it is sort of self-evident. You're trying to sort of make peace. You'll be a little bit diplomatic with Russia. Yeah. I think they talk about the mineral deal a little bit too. Trump, how that's going.
Yeah, they talked.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was a good interview with Brett Baer just recently in the President of France. Just happened tonight. I watched it. Yeah,
Macron.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
You know, Macron's wife is.
Shut up.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Either way, she is sort of a bit of a predator, no? A bit of a
what?
Whatever. Wasn't she like a teacher hooked up with Macron when he was a schoolboy or something?
What?
Yeah.
What is happening
Yeah.
here?
Hot scoop. Right here.
Well, first of all, there's lots of rumors saying that Bridget Macron was a dude. Then on top of that, and there's some interesting evidence to sort of support that. And then on top of that, like her and Macron met when he was well underage. It's a weird thing. I don't know that we want to get into it too much.
Like a Stifler's mom thing going on here. Is that what's happening?
Basically.
Oh man,
Chris probably knows the history better than I do.
No, I basically that's about all I know, really. But it seems a bit weird.
Lori made it. Macron and his husband. I think that covers it.
There you go. I think that Candace Owen, she's been going hard on the she's a man thing. Yeah,
I did see parts of this. Candace Owen is 100% convinced that, and they have threatened her with a cease and desist order. She does present a lot of good evidence. I've only seen clips of it. I haven't watched it all because I really don't care that much.
Yeah.
But it's
love Candace Owen.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude. You learn new shit every day.
Yeah.
Wow, what a crazy.
Wait till you hear the rumors about Michelle Obama. That'll blow your mind.
Yeah, that I know.
In this day and age, the fact is, there's like a dick under every dress now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's a pretty safe assumption. But this is Trump talking about the mineral deal. Let's get it off the.
There are no
dick stuff.
We're getting very close. The deal's being worked on. We're
Talking about the deal.
getting very close to getting an agreement where we get our money back over a period of time. But it also gives us something where I think it's very beneficial to their economy, to them as a country. But, we're in for $350 billion. How we got there, I don't know. But that's a lot of money, a lot of money invested. And we had nothing to show for it. And it was the Biden administration's fault. The Europeans are in for about $100 billion, and they do it in the form of a loan. And the Europeans have been great on this issue. They understood it wasn't fair, and we were able to work something out. But with the Ukrainians, I think I can say that we're very close. Scott's around here someplace, and I think we can say that we're very, hi Scott, I think We're very close. Do you have something to say about that, Scott?
We are very close. The
Good.
1 yard line.
All right, good.
Mr. President,
What?
Would a mineral deal include a security guarantee for Ukraine?
Well, it'll be, Europe is going to make sure that nothing happens. I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. I think once we settle, there's going to be no more war in Ukraine, and you're not going to have it's not going to be a very big problem. That's going to be the least of it.
Mr. President.
Just bear with me. I'll find the next little spot. 510 deal.
Thank you.
Mr. President, how do you react to people in Europe who say that you are abandoning Ukraine and that you are going to sacrifice the security of Ukraine by making a deal with Vladimir Putin?
You know, we're helping Ukraine like nobody's ever helped Ukraine before. And I can say this, if I didn't become president, Ukraine would right now still be at a level where there would be no even thinking about a peace. And it was...
It's true. There wouldn't be any talk of negotiating with Putin for some kind of deal.
This would have
with
never
that.
happened, this war, if I were president. Zero chance. And it has happened. So my function is to get them out of the war, get them out of the war, let them live. It's a bloody war. It's a horrible war. Thousands of people are being killed a week. And I would say Russia, maybe 700,000 people. I think Ukraine probably a similar number. And that's not talking about the towns and the cities that have been blown up. That's talking about soldiers. This has been a horrible, bloody mess. And we're going to get it solved. We got to get it solved. And you know, we're not talking about America's soldiers, soldiers from this country. We're talking about Russia and Ukraine. But on a humanitarian basis, we have to get this very, very bloody, savage problem solved. And I will say this also, it could lead to World War III if it's not solved. You know, there'll be a point at which it's not going to stop at those two countries. Already there's such involvement from other countries. And it could really lead to a very big war, World War III, and we're not going to let that happen either.
I think at one point he's asked about his dictator comments to Zelensky, and he's asked, will you refer to Putin as a dictator? And he basically doesn't.
I read the paper, nodding, yes, yes, yes. And he really sold me
So
out.
some people are upset about this. Oh, actually, just before we get onto this,
On and on, and I
Macron had said something, and unrelated, Trump just jumps in and he retells a story where apparently Macron was full of it. He basically says, I was sitting there at a press conference, Macron was talking in French, because I think just before this, Macron was speaking in French. He's like, and then I got home, well, I think he'll say, but he's basically calling out Macron with a bit of a laugh. They all have a laugh about it, but he's essentially saying Macron's full of crap in the past.
was just nodding, yes, yes, yes. And he really sold me out, because I got back the next day and I read the papers. I said, that's not what we said. He's a smart customer, I will tell you.
How would you
That was exactly what we agreed.
Mr. President, called Zelensky a dictator.
I don't know if it's from there. You see Macron touches Trump on the knee. I think later Trump sort of does the same back, and Macron sort of tries to push his hand away, but Trump sort of forces it back. And
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gorilla grip. He's a big dude. He almost grabs him by, you know.
I've seen a few videos. I hope see if I can find some of their various handshakes over the years. It's always a bit of a power play.
He always pulls them in real hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
Yeah, you called Zelensky a dictator. Would you use the same words for Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you know, you're talking about Europe, and you're talking about Ukraine as part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. The one thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war, but I think we're close to getting it solved.
Yes, I think it's all I've got handy at the moment. But they go on, because they had another presser as well, which I haven't got to. Yeah, they're all, I guess Europe, they also passed a whole bunch of sanctions, new sanctions. Here's Trump trying to do a deal, which will probably involve, you know, getting rid of some of the sanctions as a result. But then here's Europe trying to undermine the whole thing basically, and just, oh no, let's ramp up the new sanctions. Like now, like I don't know, they don't even really use an example of Russia doing something anymore. It's just every few months or whenever it is, they're just like, all right, more sanctions on Russia. But that's, you probably have to go the other way to get some kind of peace. But maybe it's, I don't know, good cop, bad cop with Europe and America for Russia. But I think Russia knows America's probably has most of the cards and all that.
Man, you think I'm bad at scrolling through these comments? Gary's horrible.
Well, I'm looking for a comment right now.
Well, you're everywhere. I can't even.
Well, nobody can see this, Jason.
He's always yelling at me at how I'm scrolling.
No, this is what you do. This is what you do right there. I'm like, hey, go up. I'm like, go up. You guys can't see this, but when I ask Jason to go up, if he's controlling the mouse, it's like zzz. The reason I was scrolling is somebody brought up, and I'll go ahead and share this real quick. Somebody brought up that the Resolute desk was removed because of listening devices found in the Oval Office.
I would doubt that.
I hadn't heard that. I did look that up. That was proposed. He did have it removed. Nobody's saying really why.
I'm pretty sure because old ex-boogers were on it.
Well, that was one of the things being talked about was that freaking Elon's son had literally like wiped a booger or something on it.
I would highly doubt listening devices could be put into that room. I mean, like, I've been there multiple times, and it's significantly guarded to open and shut, like, so I would be very suspect that would be the reasoning, because if that is true, the again, going back to the Secret Service, the failures that would have had to happen for that to be done is ridiculous, and how it would have gotten put in the Resolute desk is insane. I mean, the only possible way I can see that happening is through
I'll tell you how it could be done.
The janitor staff.
I'll tell you how it could be done. It could be a FISA warrant done through the CIA that would somehow get either access to and or even permission to by a activist judge and or activist other IC community personnel. I'm not saying it's correct. Probably not true, but I do want to show you guys. This is where it came from Jack Lombardi II. It is a tweet that has now been removed, but listening devices found in the Oval Office, President desk removed for security scan. In a shocking revelation that sent ripples through the Washington, sources within the White House have confirmed that the Oval Office, including the historic Resolute desk, was subjected to a high-level security sweep following suspicions of covert surveillance. Sweep reportedly uncovered sophisticated listening devices, leading to the immediate removal of the president's desk for a comprehensive off-site scan. A senior official speaking anonymously has revealed that the discovery followed routine electronic countermeasures that detected unusual signals. The anomalies were subtle but consistent enough to trigger a full investigation. We could risk compromising the integrity of the president's workspace. Now, again, that has been removed. So, take that for what it is. Just because it's removed doesn't mean it wasn't true. Obviously, that if it was true, that is something that the White House would want to keep under wraps even to begin with.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, again, that room is manned 24/7. So someone to get in there has to be let in.
Sure. And or
Well,
the people that are manning it are the ones that put the
that would be Secret Service.
Yeah, so it would be Secret Service that are actually part of it.
It just reminded me of this old story, because I remember a few years back, wasn't it? Supposedly there were other listening devices found in, where are we? Yeah, in the White House, and there was some report. So this 2019, and some political, Netanyahu and Trump, they both deny that it was Israel or whatever. But there was some report where supposedly 3 former senior US officials say Israel was likely behind surveillance devices found near the White House.
I'm sure.
Netanyahu says it was a lie, and Trump says, I don't think they'd do that. But that was something that I was reminded of.
Around that whole area, you can bet there's all sorts of stuff happening there. For listening devices, I'm sure presents are sent with listening devices in there. Everything's been done. Hell, Russia was Russia at I forget what it was. Is that a UN summit or something like that? Russia was handing out goodie bags of stuff to like, and some of them had phone chargers in it. And I was like, oh dear God, I hope you didn't plug your phone in. It turns out, yeah, that's exactly what they were. They're siphoning devices, like trying to get people's information, data dumps. I was like, dude, come on, you should already know better.
Yeah, there's other reports saying it was going to be refinished, or who knows what's true. Yeah, they definitely got cocaine in the White House. We still don't know whose cocaine that was.
No one's watching for that stuff, though.
That's such a, that's an investigation I would like to see actually reopened, because I'm sure they've destroyed all the evidence at this point. But it was hunters. Let's just be real. We all know it.
I say it's a dead drop.
I say it's hunters.
Well, yeah, like someone came in as a guest, dropped it, and then someone else would come retrieve it.
Freaking Hunter walked into that thing, pulled out his phone, put it in the box.
He would have no reason to put his stuff in there.
Well, if he was going into the White House, if he was going to the Oval Office,
he wouldn't have to put his phone in there and stuff like that.
That isn't secured?
Not for family. I've never seen anyone. There's no like box out there for phones and stuff like that. Not for family and who's ever going in there. I mean, the Secret Service sweeps you and stuff beforehand, right? But like he's family, so he lives there. He can have his stuff.
So everybody can just bring their own cellular phones.
I've never seen anyone's devices be removed before they go into the Oval Office.
Interesting.
But I haven't seen it.
Even Department of State, diplomatic security, freaking conference rooms, you have to remove your phones.
Well, when they come in beforehand, I think there's something done there, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like Hunter Biden wouldn't have had to remove his stuff. Like being a family member, he would have just came through.
That seems weird to me.
Yeah, because he has his own detail.
Just to go back to the Macron-Trump sort of a handshake thing, I wanted to bring some receipts on that. So I just got a little. The thing was, it's been updated. We had the 2017 and last year, and then this year, the various handshakes, how they all sort of play out. They're always, pretty interesting.
It doesn't let them go. I love that. Oh,
big power move.
Hey, stop that, Chris. Turn that off. Yeah. We're gonna get freaking probably done already.
Forget how tyrannical this platform is.
Yeah.
He's still holding Macron's hand as he shakes his wife or husband's hand or whatever you want to call that. And then there was this one I mentioned with it's Trump. Later on, Trump tries to get him back. Macron's like, tries to push it away.
I have no idea what he said, but that is elegant, beautiful language. Go ahead, please.
I want to.
JJ, I have never said what I do for the government, and I won't say what I do for the government. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
I can't tell you, me and Gary, we were special forces together back in the Dizay.
Jason's been a booger I couldn't flick for 20 years.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Chris, one of the things, not to digress too much, but I did want to get your take on the bodies being returned from Hamas to Israel. What was your take on that with the children? And then they ultimately sent the wrong body with that, and then they're playing games a little bit with their agreement to return. So, what's your? Yeah. I guess I want to ask you what's your defense of that, but defend it.
No, I don't really defend it. It's it is just a macabre spectacle, and it's just even me we've had a couple of debates. I'm generally against Israel, and I sympathise with Palestinians getting bombed or whatever. But yeah, even for me, watching some of these Hamas ceremonies, they're a little bit sickening or whatever. But at the same time, I'm more outraged by all the deaths, these ceremonies. Yeah, they're bad, but I don't get as offended as most people sort of do, as long as the hostages sort of come back. And yeah, obviously a bunch of them were in horrible condition, and supposedly they didn't bring the mother back. And then I'm not sure about who's being funny with the agreement, because I think Israel have used these ceremonies to say we're not going to release any more until we get a guarantee that the next lot are getting released, and they're getting released without a ceremony. So, yeah, I mean, I could sort of understand that, but I guess technically that'd be Israel sort of like putting a hold in the agreement, and maybe you might say that's acceptable because the ceremonies or whatever. I'm not sure that it is. I think they should stick to the deals and keep releasing more hostages. But yeah, I'm not a fan of, exactly the look. It's a bad look.
There's some comments.
But it's a bad look, but I'm not as outraged as I've seen many people sort of losing their minds over it. I'm like, yeah, I'm more outraged by all the body parts and stuff spread all over the place in that area. But yeah, what's your take, Gary?
I'm definitely not trying to impress you. I don't do anything cool if that makes you feel any better.
Well, to answer your question, Chris, I think that if Hamas is trying to gain favor with the rest of the world, I think they're doing a really bad job of it. And I don't think, and I think they're trying to provoke Israel with some of these things. I think that's partly the intent. I think they want I think they want the chaos to continue. I think that they feel like that they're winning over, they're gaining. They're trying to win the PR. So yeah.
I think they're trying to do small enough things to not provoke a all-out
that's
reaction, but enough to see what they can get away with. Trying to call bluff without doing something that needs an immediate response.
Maybe I'm just a victim of the Jewish media, but man, I think that
Shalom.
I think that it's really hard for me to find. I just always find Hamas's actions to be completely provocative.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think they're doing anything. They never act in good faith. And I know you probably see it as Israel never acting in good faith.
I don't see the good faith on Israel's side.
So
either.
I don't think.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of, because look, Hamas, even like October 7th, because they had those sort of Abraham Accords, and Israel sort of had the clean break memo a while ago where they wanted to somehow, they don't want to recognize a two-state solution, and they wanted to sort of destroy any supporters of Palestine, like Saddam Hussein or Assad or Gaddafi or all these kind of things. And, and then, with Trump, with the Abraham Accords, they were like trying to get, relations back with Israel or some of those Arab countries without settling the Palestinian issue. Because most of those Arab countries, they've said, well, until Palestine's a state, we're not going to deal with you again. But with the Abraham Accords, it was sort of like a stepping stone to sort of like, all right, we can maybe push Palestine sort of out of the thing, and maybe Israel doesn't have to do that. So I think Hamas was desperate, and they knew that basically that they were about to be written off and there'd be no Palestine and America and Israel moving on without them. So I do think October 7 was to provoke an Israeli response, which would kill a lot of civilians, and then they could sort of use that to sort of turn the tide. So it's a completely cynical, disgusting move on Hamas, and I'm pretty sure you won't see me actually defending Hamas for their actions and stuff. I may sort of try and do context of occupation and the bigger history and like who put them in power. Netanyahu did allow Qatar to fund them because he did want to put them in power as a tactic so they wouldn't have to recognize a Palestinian state, because whatever you want to say about Hamas, Israel's never really wanted a Palestinian state, I don't think. Yeah. Others, maybe might debate about it. But
I think that's true. I think there have been times when they were, well, I'll just, I'll cede that to you. I'll just say that without adding anything else. I do think that, I think at the end of the day, I just don't see a solution between those two. And I think that ultimately either it's going to end up in the absolute destruction of everybody in Gaza, or they're going to have to leave, because I don't think that there's any reconciliation between those two. And I don't think that's ever going to happen, especially not now.
Yeah.
I think
So-
I think that ship has sailed. And so, right or wrong, if people are like, the price of peace isn't always what we want it to be. And I think ultimately, right or wrong, the only solution left is that territory is they're going to have to move on. I don't know. And you may not like it. That may not be fair. That may not be equitable.
I don't think it'll bring peace, though. Well, if it did, maybe I'd have to concede or something. But I just can't see it. Like, that's outrageous to the whole region. Like, they won't accept that. Like, it's just not going to bring peace.
Who's going to challenge that ultimately? Is it Egypt? Egypt's going to go against Egypt.
Well, every one of them. And, like, American support isn't... I mean, it seems like it. Like, it's absolutely guaranteed, but I don't think it is. And if without that American support, and you do something like this, Israel's gone. Israel's gone. Like, all the countries will just attack him.
At a minimum with the Trump administration.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I mean, there has never been a solution, a solution that anybody's happy with. And again, at the end of the day, I think Gaza is done with. I think any idea that at the end of this, there's going to be some solution that comes up where, people go in there and rebuild, and the Palestinians that are there just, thrive and now get along with Israel. That's never going to happen. So at this point, it's like the only way is like, hey, you know what? You two won't quit fighting. We have to separate you two. We're not moving Israel. So guess what? The only other option is to displace these people and send them somewhere else. And it's not fair. It's not equitable. It's not a good solution. But I think it's the only solution. And I think it's the pragmatic solution ultimately because, they can. There has to be a buffer zone around Israel to where these rocket attacks and things like that. We have to take away that threat of around Israel. And now that October 7th happened, and everything that's happened since then, I think that's the only solution that's left.
It does seem that way, and that's why in our debates I never even really proposed the two-state solution being the solution because it seems so naive. But look, I don't think it seems like that's completely impossible and they can't live together, but I don't think it is impossible. And there's never any will to push towards it because we sort of have this idea, we've tried the two-state solution, but look at all the violence, obviously. But I don't think we've ever really tried the two-state solution. No, and I think that's the only way of it actually happening. And the fact that, Israel and Egypt were at war for ages and people were saying they could never live peacefully side by side, but they have. And even the Arabs that live in Israel, they managed to sort of coexist.
Well, then what you just stated points to the idea that the provocateurs, the problem, are the Palestinians because Israel can get along with Egypt that they had problems with. That has stopped.
Eventually. But the same thing could happen with the Palestinians. Is my point.
Said other state.
What's
right?
that?
You can't have a terrorist organization in charge of like the other arrangement. You know what I mean? Like you can't do that.
Yeah, but that always annoys me. That Hamas is so bad. Yet why is no one upset at Netanyahu for putting him in power? Basically, I know that's sort of exaggerating a little bit.
Ultimately, well, the other answer to that, Chris, would be that he didn't allow them to run the elections that they did. And if he manipulated, did some social engineering to make sure that Hamas was in power, well, that's on the people of Gaza. That is not on ultimately. He may have played a part in that, but again, he is not the reason that terrorism is being conducted in Israel right now. And just like you stated, it indicates everything you just said clearly indicates that the people of Gaza, the Palestinians, are the problem because Israel had problems with Egypt, but they don't anymore. Israel allows Arabs to live freely within Israel, and guess what? They don't have problems. So the problem here is clearly the Palestinians. And the other problem that we have is that generation after generation, they're propagandizing their own kids, saying that they have to kill. There are literally pay-to-murder freaking funds set up within Palestine, within Gaza, where they're paying people if they go hurt, kill, and or maim in any way Israelis. Like, you don't have that in Israel. There's a big difference between those two. And I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people have a hard time seeing from people that are arguing from your perspective.
Yeah, but I see it, but that doesn't mean, oh, that exists, so therefore there can be no Gaza and there can be no peace, there can be no solution. Like, these are problems that come from a very complicated history. It's not just, oh, well, these Palestinians are just bad people and they brainwash their kids and they do all this, as if Israel has had no impact on this whole situation. Like they conquered the area through war, that, in my opinion, they started. They've held onto it ever since. Bits of Jordan, bits of Egypt, bits of Syria. I don't know if you saw just yesterday, they're invading more land of Syria and they've just taken it. They fly the jets over the funeral for Hezbollah or whatever, but just imagine just what they can sort of get away with there. It's
well, there's
if
a lot
we
of
could sort of empathize with the Arabs around Israel, we would see that it's intolerable, and of course we'd have to resist that country in that area. And even if you get rid of the Palestinians, you'll have more resilient enemies around you anyway that have much more advanced weaponry than the rocks and makeshift sort of rockets that Hamas fly off.
Then what is done differently that Egypt is now at peace with Israel?
A lot of money. America paid them a lot of money, I think. And I think that's part of the...
Well, it's an ideology, right? And that ideology has been defeated over there, right? And they're not a terrorist-run government, So until you defeat...
Same could happen for Gaza.
Right, exactly. Same. Until you defeat the ideology over there, the people are going to be. Well,
that's my point. That you can't defeat the ideology that is being propagated since the time of birth.
You have to figure out how to propaganda.
Netanyahu deliberately put that ideology there so he could screw them over. And then he turns around and goes, oh, look at these people that I put there. Oh, I guess I just can't give them peace.
That has been going on long before Netanyahu was even in power. It wasn't
not
just
Hamas.
Like Netanyahu arrived and suddenly they were getting attacked and having terrorist attacks, and that all of Gaza basically said they wanted to kill the Jews, and that that is not a product of Netanyahu. Yeah. That is a product. You might say that.
I'm talking about Hamas specifically.
Well, Hamas was the first one out there. There was the PLO. There's many other organizations.
Could there not be a two-state solution with the PLO or the FA or whatever? I think they could have been.
I don't know. It didn't happen one way or the other. I mean, the reality is, too.
Because Israel's never wanted it. It's like, yeah, we can say everything's bad with Palestine, but if Israel have never wanted a two-state solution, they've done everything they can to never allow that to be, of course the situation is going to be sort of exactly how we have it now.
I would also say that the people of Gaza, the Palestinians, have never wanted it either. I don't think they've ever acted in good faith if they wanted it either. And you can say that they have good reason to. That's fine. But the fact is,
they were willing to accept Israel. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's a circular argument because you have two warring nations essentially. One is completely weak and doesn't have a lot of influence on this, although they continue to ratchet up, hostilities between each other stupidly. I think. I mean, when you're the weaker part of a fight, like you have to make more concessions than the stronger. And this goes back to even we can look back at the civil rights movement here in the United States. Like if we had a civil rights movement here in the United States that ended up being completely violent, where you had African Americans that were rising up, and some did, and rightfully so. And all of those things were justified. But what won the day was a peaceful movement where you had people protesting peacefully saying, hey, this is unjust. I don't even think that we're talking about the same thing. But my point is that if we ever went 5-10 years without attacks coming out of Gaza, they would actually have a leg to stand on morally, and they don't. But when you're constantly teaching your kids that killing Jews and killing Israelis is the right thing to do, and you're inculcating that information and propagandizing it in generation after generation, and this was happening long before Hamas was around. So, Hamas isn't the only problem. And that's the thing is, we want to say Hamas, there's some, most of the Palestinians agree with Hamas. That's why they're in power. Regardless if Netanyahu sprinkled a little fertilizer, the seeds were already sown. That's right.
Yeah, and the seeds come from a lot of the bombing, a lot of the occupation, the fact that they're not actually a country. I mean, the seeds, it's fertile ground for terrorism. I mean, it's almost impossible to expect that it wouldn't exist in these circumstances. Of course, you'll have terrorism in Palestine with the way they've been treated by Israel and the world.
Yeah,
And it's just
Palestine, Afghanistan's kind of the same way, only they're a lot more spread out. You know, like it just it's that ideology. It's always going to be whoever the strongest is, right? And they're going to take over, and the people there are just going to say, "Okay, you're in charge now. Sounds good. What do you want me to do?" That's just how it is. It's how it is.
Yeah.
Right. It's
just
survival.
it's just crazy to me that in the, not too long ago, they decided, let's just make a Jewish country smack bang in the middle of all these Muslims that brainwash their kids to hate Jews and have always hated Jews, and they've slapped it in the middle. And surprise, surprise, it's been nothing but war ever since. And the result is, Israel haven't managed to get along, and it's always everyone else's fault. So now we have to kick out the Gazans. It just doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, that's how the world has worked forever. Like the problem, one of the biggest problems that we have today is that we, in the last 40 or 50 years, have been spoiled by peace and prosperity, and we're naive. All of us are naive at how the world actually works. But the fact of the matter is that the way that it used to work is every couple of about 50 years, you'd have some freaking superpower come in, kill everybody, every military-aged male in your village, in your country, or whatever else, and then suddenly it would be a new country. This is how these things have always been since the dawn of time, and since somebody was able to pick up a rock and throw it and hit another person, then band people together and take over things time and time again. None of it's right, but it's how the world works. And when you have something like, the British Empire and, the UN and all these other people that we put in charge of the world, essentially, which is another crazy concept. Like the UN is nothing but a world government. The same thing with it's silly. Like we've turned the EU, like the EU is basically turned into these states that are banding together, much like the United States. So they're acting as one country with different states within there, which is essentially what they are. And it's not a good thing, by the way. But I digress. The fact is like, that's how the world works. When we say it's not fair that this is what happened, we created this nation. Every nation was created in the same manner by somebody in the past. And it's, it's like, well, that caused a lot of problems.
Yeah, but not so many after World War II. Supposedly World War II, we changed. We had international law. We had more.
What are you talking about?
This, that.
You know how much the Middle East changed in World War even after World War II, how much Africa has changed since World War II. Like these things are happening all the time. We're just isolated from it because we live in like this Western society that's isolated us from these normal events. It's like that's.
I was talking about creating a new country. I don't think that's. I mean, maybe I'm ignorant. I haven't know what other countries have been created after World War II.
Oh, there's.
I mean, Czechoslovakia split in two, I guess. But I know a lot of people saying Israel's always been there, but no, let's talk the reality. I mean, Israel, it was disbanded, and 100 years ago, it was still less than 20%. I think when they did the Balfour Declaration, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll give British Palestine to Israel," I think supposedly for support for World War I or whatever it was, they were still only less. I think I'm like 11%, 12%. Yeah, they get a petition of like 50, 60% of the land or whatever. But yeah, that's just a side tangent. People are like, oh, they were always there. Well, no, since the Muslim conquest of 1500 years ago, whenever it was, it's been majority Muslim. So when people are like, it's always been Israel, that's not exactly accurate. It's part of the propaganda, I think.
It hasn't been Israel since the fall of Israel during the Roman Empire. But the fact is like, it was something, it was owned by the Canaanites prior to that. Then Israel had it for thousands of years. And then, somebody
I don't think it was thousands, was it?
Oh, yeah, it was thousands. Or at least, several thousand, or a couple thousand, something like that. I don't know. Look it up. At the time, from Moses until, the end of, until the fall of Israel to the Roman Empire. But regardless, I mean, again, there was warring powers coming in and changing the landscape. That is how all of these things work. So we've had the top 5 newest countries in the world just since 2011, or let's see, the 5 newest countries in the world. South Sudan split from Sudan in 2011. Kosovo seceded from Serbia in 2008.
Okay, sure.
Montenegro separated
I'm against that one too.
2006. East Timor gained independence from Indonesia in 1975, became sovereign in 2002. Serbia,
Australia helped that one, yeah.
Montenegro in 2000.
That's right. Canada became part of America 2025.
2025. And then 2026.
It's not happening. Don't go there. No, nice.
I'd be all for that, man. Do I get a discount to fly down there then?
Like, this is the normal world events that normally take
Well, they're
place.
all different to the Israel. They're not slapping a new country in the middle. Yeah, a new Jewish country in the middle of the Muslim area.
I mean, the same arguments are made for the United States all the time. Like, oh, this was, Comanche land or this or that. Guess what? The Comanche.
No, it's funny. I had a good point. How about this? Because people talked about recreating Israel in 47, and they basically said, oh, because we were here 2,000 years ago. Can you imagine the same argument of the Native Americans or the Aborigines here saying we were here 200 years ago, let alone 2,000 years ago, so now this country has to go back to us? And that was essentially that's Zionism. That was the argument for the recreation. We were here 2,000 years ago, so we got to, that's our land. It's kind of madness. But anyway, look, that's sort of the past of the past. I'm not saying Israel shouldn't be there. Israel is there. We can't change the past. I'm just saying it was a bad idea. And it's led to just everything we've seen. And the fact that they're like, oh, well, I guess there's nothing but war, so we have to stay here and get everything that we want by pushing everyone out. It's just not fair.
I mean, many things have led, worse things have led to good peace in the past. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you might displace a couple million people. I mean, it's not the first time this happened. It's not going to be the last time it happened. We're displacing millions of freaking, or at least hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. Ukrainian refugees are going all over the place. So, and that has to do with what's going on there and the perpetration of this war. If Zelensky wanted to, he could come up with, in good faith, and start doing some, actual freaking, talking about trying to figure out and negotiating how to finish that war. He doesn't want to. He's not going to win that war. I mean, the fact is that this is how the world works. And there's a certain level of naivete that goes along with the idea of, well, they're just going to have to get along. And, we're going to have to, here's a guy in the United States and another guy in freaking Australia saying, you know what, here's what I think you guys should do. We're projecting our own belief system, our own ideology, our own thoughts. Like this is one of the things I've talked about dealing with people in the Middle East. Like, I've said this multiple times. When you project what you believe and how you think these people react, this is the narcissism and the ego of America in general, where we go to these other countries and we're like, you know what? I know you've killed everybody else, but if I just talk to you, I'm going to be able to sort this out for you. It's a joke. We're dealing with a different culture, with a different mindset. That you might as well be going up to a bear and saying, you know what? I know if I feed this bear, we can become friends. It's a farce. We don't even understand where they're coming from, and yet we think we can solve those problems. And I don't think it works like that. I don't even think that either of us can imagine the deep-seated tension in between them, and I don't think there will ever be peace. I think that if you created a two-state solution and Israel left freaking Gaza alone completely to their own devices, I don't think there would be peace. And I think Gaza and the Palestinians have proven that out time and time again, because when there is peace, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm freaking bored. I think
There's
I'm going to
never
go.
real peace.
Rockets.
I don't accept that. They're landless people that are under occupation. That's not peace. They will resist that. That's human nature to resist that. There's never oh, it's just a peace and people are resisting something. What? I don't know what they're resisting. There's never peace there.
Well, you know what? There were several thousands of years of peace under Roman
Before
occupation.
Israel, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying under Roman occupation. And because what would happen
and
is,
the Ottoman Empire wasn't.
And under the Ottoman Empire, because both of those successful empires, which, by the way, both of those were more successful than the United States have been so far. When there was somebody that was trying to resist, the natural tendency of humans to resist. Go back to Genghis Khan, for instance. When you were trying to resist, guess what? They took all of the natural ability for you to resist right out of you, because they just killed everybody. That's how they created peace. And there's still an element of that we're not used to seeing in these modern, conflicts that we have going on. Like, just like we talked about, this kind warfare produces more terrorists. You're right, because we allow it to produce more terrorists, because we allow there to be people
This
still.
is not kind warfare in Gaza. I don't. I can't accept that. Like, kill 60,000, flatten the whole thing. That's not kind warfare.
But what I'm saying is that when you have two people, they're at an impasse where they're not going to allow peace to exist. The chances are the only thing is either you got two options: either remove one group or kill one group. That's it. And I think we're at the remove one group, and I think that is the best possible solution. It's a solution nobody wants to talk about, but it is probably the only solution that actually works.
Does that go for the West Bank as well? Because Israel, they're starting to send tanks in there. There's no Hamas there. That's the plan as well, to annex West Bank, even though they're not doing the Hamas terrorism stuff.
West Bank has been less provocative than the Palestinians, for sure. I think there's more of a chance of that taking place. Hope is not lost in them. I think hope is lost as far as Gaza goes. I think the two solutions that I just proposed is the only thing left. Either they all get killed or they all move. And I think I would.
Yeah, but see, Hamas and Gaza, they're not like different people, really. It's just they've had different circumstances. Hamas was sort of took power in Gaza, didn't take power in the West Bank, and there's a bit of tension there. But if there is any hope for West Bank, there should be hope for Gaza as well. Like, I know it seems naive now. That's why I don't even really like making the point. It seems kind of silly, but I don't see peace happening the other way either. So I don't know. But I don't know. Like, this is a complicated subject.
I don't think it's that complicated. I really don't. I think we overcomplicate
it is. No, it is. If I would dare say, if it doesn't seem complicated, that you're missing some nuance and some details. Hate to get all kind of lame and corny.
I think you're trying to overcomplicate it, because it is what it is. I mean, it comes down to like there are two states that are not going to exist with each other. They cannot coexist. It's just not going to happen. And we can sit here and we can pretend that we're very sophisticated and we come up with all these great solutions. And again, you're trying to freaking project your mindset onto a bear and be like, hey, if I just give you some food, like if we just do this, like you won't eat me.
Chris, I'm going to have to give you a pointer here. I've known Gary for quite some time, and he is not going to let you win regardless of your argument.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I think we've had this is like our third debate now. I think I've laid down some all right points, but he's just a little bit stubborn, I'd say.
Yeah. All you got to go is with this right here.
He always does this to me. He's got this whole crowd that are like 100% pro-Israel. He's like, Chris, tell me how you love the Palestinians. Oh, okay. All right. The whole crowd's like, what? Oh, that was always Israel land. You don't know what you're talking about.
Let's randomly poll the audience. I don't know. Let's pull Lori Matthews. Chris is overthinking the deal.
Yeah, just keep pulling up the chat to make your points for you. Here we go.
I just randomly clicked on another one. Jeff John. There's bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, they're nice people and misunderstood.
I could search through, like, I could specifically look for a comment to pick and just I'd come up with nothing, This is what I do. See, it'd be so much easier for me to say, no, go Israel, Palestine sucks or whatever. But the fact that I don't, and it makes life a bit more uncomfortable for me in various ways, because, it's good faith here. But you understand when I make these points that I'm making now, out in the internet or out anywhere, straight away you're called an anti-Semite, you're called a horrible person, you suffer all this stuff. If I didn't genuinely have these convictions and think about them quite a bit, I would have jumped ship ages ago. But just, I do, find so much fault with Israel that I'll take on whatever comes my way. To say that
15 hours in the future, you should have seen this coming already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I knew it was coming, and I still would do it out of principle of right and wrong and morality and good Christian values. Okay, thank you very much. Don't even get me started on some of those Israelis that spit on Christians. All right, have you seen those videos? The Christians that go to Israel and they don't like them and they spit.
Yeah, I mean, there's turds in
our
every
greatest ally. Yeah, anyway.
There's turds, bigots, racists, fascists in every bunch. And
I was actually watching a little bit of a debate. I was almost going to send it to you, but I didn't because it didn't turn out to be that great. But it was between Jay Dyer. I don't know if you know him. He's like an Orthodox Christian sort of a political guy, and he debated the Misfit Patriot. He's sort of like a pro-Israel guy on Twitter, and they were talking about whether Zionism or support of Israel and support of Jews in general is biblically sourced. And we sort of touched on this before, and I think you say that it is. I say that it isn't. And Jay Dyer was saying that it isn't, and he whipped out all these Bible quotes and verses to say that, no, that's the old covenant, the new covenant now is for all, and this sort of special place that the Jews had is gone. And it's all a little bit above my element, but that's a debate which, that might be my secret to win, I think. I'll find out how all this idea of, you got to support Jews in Israel because sort of the Bible says so, if we can break that propaganda, which is what I think it is, maybe I might have a win then, but probably not.
Yeah, probably not. I do think that there is an element, like when people start talking about how the current Israelis and the Jewish people of modern day Israel are not related to the Jews that we see in the Bible. I do think there is I don't think it's propagated by everyone that says it, but I do think there is an underlying tone of, I won't even say anti-Semitism. It's you're just trying to undermine a certain element that I don't think is even viable, to say the least. But I don't even think it's irrelevant to this discussion, because I don't think most people consider that. I don't think that. First of all, just going back, a little over 2,000 years, Judaism is not like where they're going. I've talked about this before. Like, they're not going out there and evangelizing. Like, we don't have a lot of converts to Judaism, and it's such a unique religion, which is one of the reasons why Jews have been persecuted for so many years. That I think there's a clear genetic tie. And I'm sure that there's people that have studied this, can look at this and determine one way or the other. But I do think there's a clear genetic tie between the Israelis of today and the Jews that we see in the Bible. But I don't think
that's another angle I do want to get into. And this is the guy I mentioned last time. Okay, Shlomo Sand. Okay, he's an Israeli Jewish historian. Okay, he's not an anti-Semite. He's got the book, The Invention of the Land of Israel, From Homeland to Holy Land. And even the invention of the Jewish people. I think this is the one which argues against the idea that they're genetically tied. And a lot of that is myth and propaganda for political reasons. And it's, very well sourced. It's 1 million pages, 1 million footnotes. And that's specifically about the lineage. And then this is more the idea of like Israel being always there and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of, there's a lot of myth in all this, which is why so many people support Israel.
Books. You have two books there that are, I guarantee you we can find, I don't even know what you said he was. He was an actual, he's a Jewish.
Jewish Israeli historian, Shlomo Sand.
Okay, whatever. And I guarantee you there's 50 other Jewish Israeli historians that would counter everything.
Debate it.
So, I mean, 2 books worth of information from the same guy, by the way, doesn't make it a fact. And
I'm not. I didn't mean to say it was a fact, but I'm saying it's a possibility. And the reason, if it is, just imagine if this is true, then a lot of the reasons why people support Israel are propaganda. So as I said, they're my 2 things. I've got to look at the biblical arguments for supporting current state of Israel, and these are. I think that might be my way in, because everything else is just, what am I going to appeal to your think of the dead Palestinian children? That's probably not going to work. But
so I just Googled this, and here's an AI overview. And it says genetic archaeological evidence suggests that modern Jews share ancestry with the ancient Israelites and Canaanites. However, the genetic makeup of modern Jews is complex. A 2020 study found that modern Jewish groups share at least half of their ancestry with Canaanites. A genetic study of Ashkenazi Jews found they shared a genetic link with the people from Western Europe, such as Italy. Another study found that modern Jews share a genetic link that dates back more than 2,000 years. The Israelites arose from the Middle East between 3,000 and 4,000 years ago. The Romans destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem 20 CE, which led to the dispersal of the Israelites. Some Jewish populations today may be descended from converts. The history of the Jews since biblical times is complex and tumultuous. But again, genetic evidence, a 2020 study found that modern Jews groups share at least half of their ancestry with the Canaanites. The
How
genetic
many?
of Ashkenazi Jews found they share a genetic link with people from Western Europe. So there's obviously a sect of Jews that went to Europe and either
which
people
is
were
probably
converted-
this part. What it talks about those parts. So
But-
it's good.
I mean, I think
There is some link, but maybe not. It's exaggerated for political reasons. The link to
when you have
biblical.
when you have an entire country of people that have been dispersed the way that the Jews have, of course they're going to be marrying outside of their own ethnicity.
It just reminded me, just before I forget, I think something on the back here, it says, is a historical tour de force, the invention of the Jewish people offers a groundbreaking account of Jewish and Israeli history, exploding the myth that there was a forced Jewish exile in the 1st century at the hands of the Romans, which seems pretty out there. Israeli historian Shlomo Sand argues that most modern Jews descend from converts whose native lands were scattered across the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So...
I mean,
he's even arguing against the idea of this expulsion, which is kind of crazy. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that part of that is true, but clearly we have a large number of Israelites. Let's say it like that, of the Jewish population, the 12 tribes of Judea. They were clearly dispersed all throughout history. So, I mean, I don't know how much of that is
as I said, I don't really understand that bit, but I'll read it, I'll get back to you and I'll let you know whether there's anything to it. But it's funny, I got a few books on Israel here, and they're pretty much all Jewish authors too. So
my knee-jerk reaction, and maybe this is wrong, my knee-jerk reaction to both those books were the title. They seem very, I would like to see an objective source actually study this, and I'm sure it's been done. And it's called, this is something I have heard of before, called the Jewish diaspora, the dispersion of Jews throughout, the world through conquest, being conquered, and everything else. So,
yeah.
There was another topic that I wanted to hit on, may have gotten lost in the sauce there. That was supposed to be a
just can't help yourself.
Discussion.
It's just, Chris, what do you reckon of the hostage releases? Just quickly.
100%.
Before we go, let me flash my other books, okay? Balfour Declaration, okay? Shady business about how Israel was created, between the English Empire in World War II and...
Do you buy any pro-Israeli books?
No. Someone recommend me one. But I feel like I just turn on the TV. I got an Israel book on every channel, okay? But yeah, I've got another one here, Norman Finkelstein. Love that guy. And Max Blumenthal. I haven't read this one yet. This is about the 2008. 2014. I lose track of all the Israeli wars.
Chris, I mean, you're attracted to the underdog. I get it, even if that underdog is a terrorist. It's okay. It's okay. You got a good heart.
Yeah, well, you might be right. I don't know. And this one. Okay, this is the big one. This is the next one we got to hit. Because also in a previous conversation, when I brought up the idea of Netanyahu's clean break memo, where he wanted to overthrow all the countries that have basically been overthrown since by America, and the idea that he was at least partially responsible for the Iraq War. I remember you were quite dismissive of that. So I got to read this. I got to read more about how the Iraq War exactly kicked off. We know Netanyahu was definitely there in America lobbying for how... taking out Saddam Hussein would spread democracy through the reason.
Congress about it.
Yeah. So I think he's got a big part of, and this is like another reason why I really don't like Israel, is because my initial thing was against sort of neoconservatism and all these wars, and then there's this big link with all of that to Israel and a big Israeli plan, and that's sort of what started me off of I'm not really a fan of this other country over here. Pushing all that kind of stuff. And because some people have been looking at, John Mersheimer, he wrote it. He's good for a lot of, people might know him for his Ukraine takes. He's also very good on Israel and the lobby, and he goes through all various wars and the American wars and the Israel influence and stuff. So, you got your comments in the chat. I'll flash a couple of books to back me up because I was in a bit of hot water there for a while.
I don't think those books give you the credibility I think you think they do. It's
because these people don't read. Okay, that's what's going on.
Your position. I can find a book on just about anything. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, what I will say is, like, when somebody starts, I get very suspicious when somebody starts saying, "Oh, well, these aren't even the same Jews from the Bible." Like, I don't think there's
What
any.
if it's true though?
Well, no. I mean, it's most likely not even close to being true. Have they been genetically watered down to some extent? Yes, but again, as long as they're like the people that carry on Judaism throughout the history of being displaced and dispersed from Israel, I think that points to a clear genetic link through the ideology itself. It is not a freaking, again, it's a very, very different religion from the rest of the world. I mean, it just is, and it's not a religion that people convert to. They have been persecuted since, definitely since the Middle Ages. So,
well, didn't we just read there were some converts somewhere in history, right?
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
Look,
doubt that.
as I said, look, I haven't even read the book yet. You know what I mean? So I could be.
I don't think you need to. I think you're absolutely sold on it already.
Look, I get where you're coming from, but look, I'll try and look at it honestly. And look, it's probably the case that there is some link, but it's exaggerated. Isn't that sort of the most reasonable possibility?
My challenge to you is to get a couple books that counter your position.
All right, I will. As I said, I feel like everywhere you go, you hear, I've heard the Israel perspective on every part of it.
Well, maybe it's most popular because it's true.
Possibly. Or,
I mean,
possibly not.
I mean, not everything is propaganda. Like, the fact that gravity...
it should be like the Democrats or the media talking about feminism or whatever. Maybe it's just true. Maybe, we're all too misogynist and...
I'm not talking about things that were created yesterday.
Only 70 years ago, Israel or whatever. But, whatever it was.
All right, Chris, what else you got? What
I don't know if...
topic to...
Got a challenge here from Jeff. I don't know. Would they let me in Israel? I don't know if that's a good idea. But anyway.
It's not a good idea. All right.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm a bit drained.
How
but...
we ended up back on the Israeli-Gaza topic. That was completely my fault.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Here we are. We're trying to have a show. We're trying to get camaraderie with the audience. I remember, I think Jeff or someone saying last episode, we're trying to forget your Palestinian takes, so we can move on. And then here's Gary just bringing them up again. Anyway.
Well, you got to have, you got to have an anti-hero or antagonist, right? Or it's just not
I do have to say this, though, with those books, I did watch quite a few talks of the author talking about the books, and that's why I bought them. So it's not like I'm completely like I've read one sentence, and I can't remember. I got these years ago, but I did, I watched a couple of hours worth of him explaining some of the thesis of his book. I can't remember much of it, but it seemed convincing. Like it seemed like this guy has done the research and he's got the receipts, so I'll go buy his books. And
so
I got random. Yeah.
If we just agreed on everything all the time, we'd be MSNBC.
Yeah. So just remind me, I actually have my bookmark
the
here.
nice thing, Chris, if you're on MSNBC, everybody on there would agree with you on this topic.
Yeah, it's funny. Joy Reid, our favorite, here she got her show got cancelled.
I did see that. That was really.
She was having a bit of a crying video, and I'm watching this video. She's getting all upset. She's like, "My show is important. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about that." I'm like, having a bit of a laugh, and she's like, "And we need to keep talking about Gaza and how bad Israel is." And I'm like, these are the bedfellows I have, but I don't really fit in anywhere.
That's.
Yeah, I was going to say my bookmark is American money. I have some American money. Okay, I got $1.
Look at that. That's worth almost nothing over there.
Well, it's probably worth, I don't know, closer to $2 or something. But meanwhile, look at Australian money, okay? Look how pretty it is. Okay, it's strong. It has all these like technology things, so it can't be forged. Just beautiful colored. You know what it is. Each dollar is in the same green. You're like, how much is this? You're like, no, that's a 10. That's a 50. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean,
Australia number one. Thank you very much.
It doesn't even look real.
It's I don't know. Like this one, I'm not even game to do a bit of that on this one. I don't know how it could last. It looks like it's about to fall apart in my hands, you know.
Well,
But anyway,
the world standard is hard to reproduce. We don't have to be flash.
yeah. Well, you know,
We don't have to peacock our money to get attention. It's just worth more.
we're just considerate of people with, you know, maybe they can't read the number or something. Apparently, there's even Braille or something on here. I don't know. I've never seen it. There's a couple of dots you can feel if you're blind. You know, probably not. I guess that's not on your money.
No.
You guys like stuff the blind, you know.
Yeah, we don't have blind people in the United States.
But yeah, I don't know. What are we even talking about? This show, it's one of a kind. I
It's
think.
time to call it a day, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
All
that's what
right,
it was a little while ago.
I think it's time to call it a day. Hey, it's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What are we talking about on Thursday?
I don't know. Hopefully not Israel.
No, we definitely won't talk. Wednesday, we'll have a great guest on, I believe. I have a great guest scheduled. I need to follow up with him for Wednesday about, well, we'll be talking about SSRIs, and we will be talking about just overall mental health in the United States. I think it'll be good. He's a board certified psychologist, all that those good things.
Oh yeah. Before we go, I was meant to show this comment from earlier, which I appreciate, from Fraser. I watched your short documentary, Chris. It really changes the narrative of what was happening in the area before the start of the invasion, which is this one. So everyone, I'd recommend it to everyone. 25-minute summary of how the war broke out at Chris.Nolan, or you can find it at Watchdog Media on YouTube. And I appreciate the comment. It really does. Like, no one knows this part of the story of
helping you understand
music. But there's Biden at the head of the table telling an unelected government what's what. Yeah, go fight this war. Go bomb this and set these people on fire. And yeah, jump, you scum.
It's not good.
Anyone know what this is? Probably the Odessa massacre. Okay, this is horrific. People were like murdered. The pro-Ukrainian people went in there and murdered the pro-Russian people. They shot them, beat them. People fell off from the top floor, and there were people there waiting to finish them off with bats and stuff. And then here they are, they got them in a pile. You know, you bitch, we're Ukrainians, we're not Russians. It was like, I'm just for federalization, basically more state rights. Anyway, a lot of stuff in there, and it really, none of it's really too well known. Or if it is, it's sort of presented as if it's Russian propaganda, but these are sort of real events. And yeah, I just had to plug that. I've got to suffer through all these Israel's debates. I'm at least going to plug my video at the end. Why not?
Well, along those lines, I just watched the episode, or I've watched a few minutes of it, of Bob Amsterdam, how the USAID is helping Zelensky destroy Christianity, and what they're doing with what they're doing against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and how they have established a basically state-ran church that is, you know, they continue to persecute all the Orthodox churches, just steal the churches, take them over with the state-run church. It's pretty crazy out there. So, yeah, that's definitely worth checking out. Go to Spotify. Bob Amsterdam, how USAID is helping Zelensky destroy Christianity with fake churches and violence. Very interesting, and I can't wait to watch the rest of it. Anyways, folks. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, good old Jeff. He promotes Winter on Fire. Of course, Jeff Wood. That's total Ukrainian propaganda slop. But, you know, if you want to get the other side from my video, you can go watch Winter on Fire. That's about how good the Ukrainians were to, like, overthrow their previous government because they wanted to join the EU and I guess NATO, because that was such a great idea. But yeah, that's the other side. Thanks, Jeff. And thank you, Laurie. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday. We'll have another great show set up for you. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.